Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest studied ethno-mycology at the University of Washington in the late 60s and in 1973 began a 10-year career as a large-scale commercial mushroom grower. He is the co-author of the Mushroom Cultivator. In 1989, he established Nammex, the first company to supply medicinal mushroom extracts to the nutritional supplement industry. He is a founding member of the World Society for Mushroom Biology and Mushroom Products. Welcome to the show, Jeff Chilton.
Matt, thanks for having me. Great to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. We were chatting before. We both realized that we are Canadian. We started to dive down the mushroom rabbit hole, so we didn't get too far. We just started the broadcast. But you've been in this mushroom game for a long time. We're going to explore the health benefits and maybe get into some psychedelic talk and everything mushrooms. So why don't you just start us off with a little bit about your background, your history, and how you got to doing the work you are today?
Well, I actually grew up in Seattle, and look, as you know, I mean, the Pacific Northwest is just like rain, and what that means is in the fall we have an amazing mushroom season. I mean, one of the best places in the world for wild mushrooms. So I grew up with mushrooms all around me, and when I went to university, I studied mycology, which is the study of fungi, but my main field of study was anthropology. And so I put the two together and I studied the use of mushrooms by different cultures for food, for medicine, and in shamanism. Now, after I got out of university, what do you do with a degree in anthropology? Not a whole lot, right? Not a lot of jobs waiting for me. So I thought, well, I'd love to learn how to grow mushrooms. And look, one of the things you have to remember too, I was in university during the 60s, and psychoactive mushrooms, LSD, lots of these types of plants and substances were around. And so we were doing a lot of experimentation. But in 1973, I started at a large mushroom farm in Washington State. I was there for the next 10 years, and I was literally living with mushrooms. We were growing 2 million pounds of agaricus mushrooms per year. And not only that, we had a Japanese scientist there who was growing 3 other species: oyster mushrooms, enoki mushrooms, and the shiitake mushrooms. So I was basically living with mushrooms for those 10 years. And there was so much going on with wild mushrooms, including psilocybe species during the 70s. So it was really an awesome time to be for me and what I was doing at the time.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going. Well,
I will.
Yeah, please. I would just listen, and I was waiting for you to continue.
Well, let me just,
keep going.
Well, I was gonna say, look, in 1989. Well, first of all, in 1983, I co-authored a book called The Mushroom Cultivator, and that book was all about, it's a practical guide to growing mushrooms at home, and that book still sells 5,000 copies a year today. Think about that. That's 40 years later. It's still selling. In 1989, I started my company Nammex, which we produce mushroom extract powders that we sell to the supplement industry. And today, at a time when, back in 1989, nobody in the supplement industry knew anything about mushrooms. In fact, people, they had a complete line of herbal products, right? But mushrooms as a supplement, what? Well, so I spent the 90s educating people about the benefits of medicinal mushrooms, because they'd been used in China for thousands of years as part of their traditional Chinese medicine. So a long period of education there, building the company all through the 90s. And it's so interesting because in 1983, when I went to the mushroom farm, classical nutritionists actually thought that mushrooms had no food value. Well, wait a minute. Why did they say that? Because they're low in calories. So low in calories, you have no calories. It's like, okay, why are we eating these things? They have no calorie. Well, lots of reasons why we should eat mushrooms. I mean, it's a fabulous food, good protein, especially if you're a vegetarian, high in carbohydrates, which are slow acting carbohydrates. There's no starch in mushrooms, which is sort of why there's a low calorie count there. They have carbohydrates, one called mannitol, another one called a beta glucan. And that's one of the things that we focus on in the functional mushroom space is this beta glucan, because what you learn is not only do they have really good nutritional values, but the medicinal values are based around this compound called the beta glucan. And that is part of the cell wall of the mushroom, and it's part of the fiber. So when you're eating mushrooms, you're getting not just good nutrition, but also you're getting functional benefits. But we go one step further and we take the mushroom, we extract it down into a powder, and then that's what we sell to other companies. And they put it out in capsules, bottles, and put it into the supplement industry. So it's a great food, or you can use it as a supplement. And the company now has gone from a point where, okay, what are these things, to where, today, Matt, look, all of a sudden mushrooms are the thing, right? And they're just trending so much. But, who would have thought? It took years to educate, and it's kind of like, well, where did this come from? Well, it's been around for a long time. And in a sense, it's finally caught up to what I've been doing for the last 40 years.
Wow. Well, that must have been such a ride, and to try to educate the public on these benefits, wait such a long time, and now to see it trending, I imagine there's some satisfaction to that. So it's nice to see the reward being in the game for a long time. And as we started the show, I shared with you, I don't know very much about mushrooms. I just know that many people have told me that mushrooms are amazing. You take this mushroom, you take it. And I was like, so for you, and maybe my audience, so my apologies if I don't know anything, what are your 5 to 10 best mushrooms, and what do you use them for, and how do we start integrating them? I want the mushroom protocol of okay, I want a mushroom tea and it's going to give me the health benefit, or I want the one I just told you, I got a mix of a variety of mushrooms and that's supposed to help with brain function. And so my challenge was, how do I begin to integrate these into my diet? And maybe as you share that, you can talk about some of the benefits, which I know there are many.
Well, yeah. And look, the primary benefits of mushrooms are they help to modulate or enhance our immunity. And that is the real key. It's not, you really have to remember about mushroom. You know how you could, let's say you've got a headache today and you go, oh God, I'll just take an aspirin or an IBU or something and that'll take care of it. That's not how mushrooms work. So if somebody says, oh yeah, I just started today or yesterday and I took this mushroom tea or something today, I feel like wonderful. Look, mushrooms take time to work. You have to put them into your health program, whether it's a supplement. One of the things I always tell people is put mushrooms into your diet. Do you eat mushrooms at all?
No, in my food, very rarely, maybe on some
Dude,
pizza.
come on. What do I have to tell you?
You got to tell me how right now and I'll do it.
They are a fabulous food. And look, if you go down into some of your natural food stores, you will probably find shiitake mushrooms. Maybe even in the local supermarkets, you'll find shiitake mushrooms. Fabulous food, wonderful flavor, but also has some medicinal benefits. And in fact, most of the mushrooms that are on the market, whether it's the agaricus, which is the button mushroom, or the shiitake, or a maitake, or a lion's mane, man, get them into your diet. They're so versatile. You can put them in anything. The key, though, and this is something where, in terms of eating mushrooms and stuff like that, it's very important that they're cooked right. And what that means is you put them into a hot pan, and I like to brown them in that hot pan. Put whatever oil you like. If you put them into a pan that's not hot enough, what happens is all the water comes out. They're sitting in a puddle of water in your fry pan. And then your kids say, oh man, I hate those mushrooms. They're so soggy and slimy. It's like, no, those were not cooked properly. Cook them properly. And then you can put them in, whether it's a stir fry that you're making or eggs, or I just eat them plain as well, or I eat them, I'm a meat eater. I'll put them with a piece of beef or anything like that. Versatile, but you've got a good choice today that we didn't have years ago. I mean, the button mushroom pretty much was the main mushroom that was grown for such a long time before these other, what we call specialty mushrooms, worked their way into the market, and the flavors there are amazing. So number one, put mushrooms into your diet. If you want to supplement, okay, that's good. And again, the key thing is they are going to help you. They're going to, what we say, potentiate your immunity. And look, it's so funny because a lot of people up until the last few years went like, yeah, I'm healthy, you know, and my immune system's good. And then COVID comes along and all of a sudden it's like, boom, immunity becomes a real major idea out there. Oh shit, am I immune to this or not? Am I going to hold up to this or not? So potentiating your immune system with mushrooms is something that everybody should get on board with. And essentially, let's just start with, let's say, the reishi mushroom. You ever seen a reishi mushroom?
Oh, is it? I think so.
Well,
This doesn't even matter. All the feeds I see, so many people like David Avocado Wolf, they'll always post the mushrooms and what they look like and the lion's mane. I'm like, so it's in my subconscious somewhere. And my question always, as you're answering, is like, well, how do I begin to eat these things? I'm not going on the force, just eating it off the tree.
Well, yeah, and look, right behind me, I'm sort of sitting in a reishi mushroom greenhouse. Those are reishi mushrooms, and it's a beautiful mushroom, but it's not a mushroom you eat because it is hard as wood when you dry it out. So traditionally with the reishi mushroom, they'll chop it up and make a tea out of it. So it's one of the few, there's a couple of them, reishi mushroom or turkey tail, where you don't actually eat them. They're not an edible per se. You make a tea from them. Reishi is one of the primary mushrooms that you should consider for overall immunity. It's got, not only does it have these beta glucans in them, but it also has compounds called triterpenoids. And the thing with reishi mushroom is it's very bitter. So if you were to drink it in a tea, you'd go, oh my God, that's terrible. That's why probably with a reishi, you'd want to get capsules or something like that. But that's one of the top mushrooms to potentiate our immune system. And what that actually means is that these beta glucans, we have receptors in our small intestine, and the beta glucans come down, they hit those receptors, and that will stimulate the production of cytokines, which are immune cells, and they will help us deal with any type of microbial illness that comes along or other. So that's the key thing to remember about functional mushrooms, is they're going to help us when it comes to, you just think, oh, here comes the cold and flu season. No, I mean, I never even think about that at all. I don't think I've had a flu or a cold for 10 years or longer. I just don't, not since I stopped smoking tobacco. When I was smoking cigarettes 20 years ago, every year I'd have a couple of colds and I'd get the flu or something like that. I stopped tobacco and then, got much healthier that way. And certainly the mushrooms are helping me maintain my immune system. So I don't think about flus or anything like that. I mean, I really don't. It's just like, so reishi, number one. You've heard of lion's mane. You were talking about the fact of lion's mane.
I've got a little essential oil of lion's mane. I always forget to take it, but yeah, my buddy Dr. Nick, who does some wild and amazing essential oils, it's like, you got to have the lion's mane, right? Another one of the guys is talking about the mushrooms. So yeah, please continue.
Well, lion's mane is interesting because it has compounds in it that will stimulate what's called nerve growth factor. And nerve growth factor helps us to, it's something that we produce, and it will stimulate our neuron growth and help to organize our neurons. And so as we get older, we tend to produce less of this nerve growth factor. So lion's mane helps to maintain the production of this nerve growth factor. And that's really good for us in terms of memory and just overall function, mind function. And look, you don't know it yet, but as you get older, your memory starts to go away. And you're like, oh shit, what was that? What was your name again? I kind of forgot, So that everybody, and that's why lion's mane is so popular, because it's what's considered a nootropic. And nootropics are the big sort of catchword these days, in a sense. And everybody's like, what can I do to enhance my my health, and what can I do to enhance my basic ability to function in this world? So,
and for those who don't know, could you explain to them what a nootropic is?
Well, a nootropic basically refers to anything that enhances our abilities in some way. I mean, a nootropic could be coffee. Okay, yeah, I'm drinking coffee, and oh man, it stimulates me. My mind is really active now. So anything like that. And a lot of people look at nootropics as sort of like body hacking, or hacking the our organism. I mean, Dave Asprey in Bulletproof does a lot of, talks a lot about biohacking and that kind of thing. So in a sense, it's a way to stimulate our body to react better to our environment and what's going on. That's a nootropic. And so it's a big category. Now, nootropics can be a lot of different things. I like to think of them and from the prospect of a natural product, because that's what I'm producing and offering as a natural product. It's a actual mushroom, and we take that, and what we do is we will process that by a hot water extraction. So what that means is just like, think about making a soup, and you throw a bunch of stuff into a soup and you kind of simmer it for hours, and then at a certain point you go, okay, I'm going to pour off that liquid because that's the extract, and then that's what you're going to drink. And in some cases you'll leave the fiber behind. Other cases you might hold on to the fiber. Like, let's say you're putting chunks of meat in the soup, and the flavor comes out in the soup, but you still eat the meat that's in there. So that's how we extract our mushrooms. But we take that fluid and we will evaporate the liquid down until it's a very thick, kind of thick, almost syrupy, and we'll send it off to what's called a spray dryer, and it comes out as a fine powder. And that's what we sell. We sell fine powder. We don't sell liquids. We don't deal with liquid extracts or anything. We sell the fine powder, which is good for, you can take it in. A lot of people like to do a smoothie every day. Take that and put it into a smoothie, or take it in a capsule or something like that. But lion's mane, good for brain function. Cordyceps, yep.
Oh, sorry to
go
cut you
ahead.
off, but so how do I get the lion's mane in my diet? Through a supplement is the easiest way?
Well, unless you have fresh lion's mane in your local market. If you go to Vancouver, you can get fresh lion's mane, but where you are, probably not. Unless you have a natural food store and they're shipping it in from, growers in the Fraser Valley, or maybe in Alberta, there's some growers. So for you, probably the best way would to get it in supplement form. And you can usually buy that either as a bulk powder, like in a pouch, or in capsules. Has a good flavor. So pouch of it would be, cool to do it. And I don't know whether you do a smoothie and do all the alchemy of a daily smoothie. I know a lot of people do. So that's certainly one way. Have you ever heard of cordyceps?
I have, yes. But don't know all the amazing stuff you're about to tell us.
Oh, well, dude, what's
I just know they're good for me, like I said.
Yeah, what's cool about cordyceps? Cordyceps actually, it's called caterpillar fungus. So it grows in Tibet. And what happens is this caterpillar, winter's coming along, the caterpillar will actually hibernate, and it goes down into the ground a couple inches. And then while it's down there in the ground over the wintertime, these spores of cordyceps will germinate, and they will get into this caterpillar and consume it. So basically the whole inside of the caterpillar has been consumed by this fungus. And then in the summer, early summer, up comes the little cordyceps mushroom. And it's like a blade of grass. It's not like a normal mushroom. So they call it winter worm, summer grass. Now that's the traditional cordyceps. And if I go to you and say, hey, Matt, you want some cordyceps? And you look at it and you go, damn, man, that's a caterpillar. I'm not going to eat that, right? So that's not what gets sold in our markets. It does get sold in Asia. We grow that. So we grow the cordyceps, and it's only the mushroom part of it, again, which is just a really cool little blade of grass. We grow that, no insects involved. And it's just a different species of cordyceps, but it has all of the same benefits. And cordyceps has traditionally been used for fatigue. Maybe you're ill and you just can't get out of it. You're kind of trying to get over it, but you just can't. That's where they would give people cordyceps in traditional Chinese medicine. So fatigue, sometimes they're used for high altitude. You get up in high altitudes, you need something to kind of help you process the oxygen. So that's another. So cordyceps these days seems to be used by a lot of companies that are putting out athletic type products for people that, if you're a high level athlete in whatever sport and you want to sort of have that extra bit of help, then cordyceps seems to be where they're using it these days. Another mushroom that's really cool. Ever heard of chaga?
I have heard of chaga, yes.
Chaga probably.
That's the one you can get into a drink that everyone's like the chaga drink.
Well, you do, because chaga grows in your area and it grows off the side of birch trees. And it doesn't look like a mushroom. What it looks like, it just looks like this black, gnarly kind of knob that comes off the side of the tree. And you're just like, holy shit, what the hell is this thing? so chaga, you can't grow it. You can't grow chaga. You can only wildcraft it. Oh. So chaga, and it was been used for hundreds of years in Siberia and Eastern Europe and things. And again, you would make a tea out of it, or what we do is we collect it and we make an extract out of the chaga. But chaga has been used for immunological effects as well as for stomach issues. That's something where it's been used for. Maybe if you've been out there, one of the things that happens is, how sometimes an herb will blow up and the next thing you know, it's like, oh man, this herb can do everything. There's nothing it can't do. And if you go out there and look at some of the chaga websites, they'll call it, oh, this is the king of mushrooms. Oh, it does everything. And it's just like, oh shit, help me out here. It's like when I see that, I'm just like, God, stop it. No, chaga is not the king of mushrooms, and no, it can't do everything. But it is a good mushroom for things like, I always tell people, if you have digestive issues or stomach issues of some sort, give chaga a try. Maybe if you got irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or something, try chaga out. It might be a benefit for you, because that's a traditional use of chaga. So that's where chaga fits in for me in terms of what I think people should be using it for. And right now, those four mushrooms are the top sellers for us are chaga, cordyceps, reishi, and lion's mane. And lion's mane is kind of number one right now, just because people are so into this idea of anything that can enhance. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, take these mushrooms in a regular way. And the way I look at it too, in terms of taking them as supplements, look, if you're taking certain supplements, for example, if you're taking vitamin D, It's not like, oh, I'll take it for a week or two and see what it does or anything. And you're going, well, I can't feel that vitamin D. Is it really working or not? Well, that's what's going to happen with a lot of supplements. You're going to be like, is it working or isn't it working? Well, I'm taking vitamin D, I'm taking vitamin C. Well, what you're doing is you're just ensuring that you're getting it, because you could say, I get that out of my diet, or I'm in the sun enough where I get enough vitamin D. Well, vitamin D, for example, has proven to be so important that it's something that we should all be taking regularly. It is a super important vitamin. And look, it proved during the last 3 years of COVID, it proved that people who were having issues, the majority of them were deficient in vitamin D. So, so I guess what I'm saying with mushrooms is you have to put them into your diet, supplement with them. Don't expect to see, the world change in the next week. It's going to be something that you'll go over a period of time, given that you've got other things like a good diet and you exercise. You should have an overall better health and be able to say, oh, gee, I haven't gotten many colds this year, or I didn't get the flu or something like that, because they are antiviral. So those are the kind of things that you have to think about when you're taking a supplement or even putting mushrooms into your diet. Although I think putting mushrooms, I call mushrooms the forgotten food. It's like the missing dietary link. You need to put mushrooms into your diet. But again, if you're supplementing or putting them into your diet, this is something you just have to do in a regular way and make it part of your regimen, just like you would take vitamin D or vitamin C or something like that. That's what you do. And over time, you can say, oh, they seem to be helping or not. And then you can decide whether you want to continue supplementing or not. But whether you do carry on supplementing, you should definitely get them into your diet, because there's been a lot of interesting studies out there in Asia that have shown people who eat mushrooms live longer. So I look at them in a way as kind of a longevity food. And that's one of the things that I think we really lack in North America, is putting mushrooms into the diet. We don't eat anywhere close to what they're eating out in Asia. I mean, not at all. So this is an area where we could see a lot of improvement.
That was amazing. I love that summary. It's very helpful for me. And so if I'm understanding you, if I want to integrate these into my diet, I'm going to just start cooking with mushrooms more, which I like. So I can do my breakfast. And there's a lot of other things I could add mushrooms to. And you're saying those button mushrooms are still really good? Because I feel like when you get into all these fancy ones, the reishi, like the little button ones or whatever, like they're not good enough. So those are good enough.
No, the button mushrooms are good. Okay, absolutely good. Yeah. I still eat them. And look, I spent 10 years on a farm where we were growing millions of pounds of those things. I had them right there. I was living with them. We also grew some of the others, but so I ate a lot. I never got tired of them. I still like them. I'll eat them as well as the others.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Mushroom. So if we had, let's say you're going to recommend a daily protocol, because this is what I like for myself, is just creating systems where I can easily integrate the information or the food or the training or the habit, right? So if I've just got the other ones in supplements, and then maybe, okay, so to define it for the audience, it might be a little bit more clear. Cook with whatever mushroom you want, have a reishi, lion's mane, and cordyceps supplement, and then chaga mushrooms. And
well, I'll tell you what,
those daily.
What I would say
for tea, sorry.
Well, what I would say, there are a couple ways of doing it. One of which is you could pick one particular mushroom for one part of your life. Let's say you're really into strenuous exercise or something. Maybe that means you'd want to work with cordyceps. Or if you wanted just one product that you could say, okay, this is going to help my immune system cope. We actually have a product that has 5 different mushrooms in it, and we call it the 5 defenders, and it's kind of like an immune complex. That would be another way to go. It's one of our more popular products. We have look, my business is based around selling mushroom extract powders to other companies. So lots of companies out there utilize our products. We also have a retail line, but it's only sold online. I mean, you can get it on Amazon or iHerb or places like that. But we have this one product that has 5 different mushrooms. And look, be careful, because a lot of companies will go, oh, you got 5 mushrooms in your product. Well, I'm gonna make a product with 10 mushrooms. And then someone else says, wait a second, I've got one with 16 mushrooms in it. And then someone else goes, mine's got 20. That's just the worst possible thing, because every time you put one of these, let's just call it lesser species, all that does is lower the amount of the really good species that you're looking for. So I always say, look, if you're going to do a composite product or buy something like that, 5 should be the max. Beyond that, you're just lessening the effectiveness of that product. And look, this may be a good time to just discuss what's out there in the mushroom world in terms of product and product quality. And this, Matt, man, this is so important, and your listeners really need to pay attention to this. There are products in the marketplace that are being sold as mushroom that are not mushroom. And what's happening is first of all, just to explain this thing that we call a mushroom a little more, mushrooms don't have seeds. Well, how the hell do you grow a mushroom if you don't have a seed? Jesus, it's like, this is odd. Well, mushrooms have spores. Those spores in nature, they're out there and everywhere in nature. When conditions are right, that spore will germinate into a very fine filament, and that filament's called a hypha. And when multiple of these filaments come together, they'll create a network, and that network is called mycelium. That's the
Star Trek. That was the whole premise of one of the newer. So I don't know if it's new now, but they're just like the mycelium network, which makes you think, like, when you eat like I don't want to divert the conversation to the psychedelics, but that's kind of like what you feel when you take magic mushrooms, is that you're connected to everything. So
no, that's absolutely right. And we should talk about that. But let me just finish this particular subject because it's so important. But that mycelium is actually the body of the organism. So think of mycelium kind of like as the tree. So the mycelium, we normally don't see it because it's underground or it's embedded in a piece of wood, but that's the body of this organism. And it's basically consuming organic matter, breaking it down, building up its reserves of energy. And when the fall comes around, up comes a mushroom. And that mushroom goes through a number of stages. The cap expands. Underneath the cap are gills. Those gills produce spores. Now those spores get off on wind currents. Now we have basically a completion of this life cycle. So think about it this way. This organism that we call a mushroom has 3 different parts to it. It has a spore, it has this mycelium, and it has a mushroom. And this is really important when you buy a supplement, because when you buy a supplement, they have to tell you what plant part is in that supplement. Is it the root? Is it the leaf? Is it the fruit, the flower? That's so important for any supplement, because the actual medicinal compounds will vary depending on what part of that plant they're in. And it's the same with this organism that we call a mushroom. Now, what happens is that some companies will grow this mycelium on sterilized grain. And when that grain has been completely covered with mycelium, they will take it, they will put it out on drying racks, they'll dry it, and they'll grind it to a powder. There's no mushrooms involved. It's just this mycelium on grain. So then they will sell it as a mushroom. The grain hasn't been taken away at all. The grain is still a major part of the product. And so when you test these products, which is one of the things that we do, is we do a lot of testing, it turns out they're mostly starch from the grain. Very little mycelium there, but yet these companies will say this is mushroom, and they'll sell it as mushroom. And in many cases, they won't even tell you that the grain is part of the product. So what you end up buying is mostly grain starch. So when you are buying a mushroom product and you're looking at the label and there's the picture of the mushroom and it says reishi mushroom, cordyceps mushroom, turn it over, look at the facts panel, supplement facts. It should say mushroom, but if it says mycelium, then chances are this is what you have. You have this product where it's mycelium growing on a grain. The honest companies in the other ingredients will actually say myceliated brown rice or myceliated oats or something like that. You need to avoid those products because what you're mostly getting is grain starch. And other companies won't even do that. They won't even reveal the fact that it's this mycelium produced on grain and you're getting mostly starch. One of the things you can always do is just empty out the capsule and taste it. It tastes like flour. There's no real taste to it. If you got a reishi product manufactured that way, it's not bitter at all. So this is a huge issue because 80% or not 50% of the products in the market are this particular product. And it's like, let me tell you, when you buy a supplement and you're thinking you're getting a mushroom, but you're not, and instead they're selling you grain starch, it's like, what the hell? But that's what's going on. And there's a reason for that. Why are they producing this? There's a reason for it. Growing mushrooms is expensive. Well, you say, well, there's lots of mushrooms out in the marketplace. You know, they're selling it and all. Yeah, that's a fresh mushroom. Mushrooms are 90% water. Supplements are dried powders. So if you take that pound of mushrooms that you're getting, let's say the grower's getting $5, he dries that out. He's got to get $50 now for that same pound of mushrooms. The economics do not work in North America. Have you ever seen these little packages of dried mushrooms in the supermarkets at times? And you look at them and you go, okay, oh, hey, there's 15 grams. They want $30 or not $33 for 15 grams. And you're just like, what the hell? Who buys those things anyway? It's like, it's insane. So the point is that because you can't grow mushrooms in North America and sell them into the supplement world, they grow this mycelium on the grain, they grind it to a powder, grain it all, sell it as a mushroom, which it's not. And the market is full of those products. So if you see one of those products, it says made in the USA or made in Canada, man, beware. And one of the ways that you can test that is all you have to do, get a quarter cup of water, empty out about 5 capsules, mix it up really good in the water, get a little bottle of iodine. There's what's called the iodine starch test. If it is mostly starch, mushrooms don't have any starch, that liquid, when you put 10 drops of iodine in, will turn black. Man, it is the coolest test you've ever done. If you have any kids, get that iodine and have them do that test. It's awesome. It's really cool because all of a sudden it's just like, damn, what the hell happened? If it's a real mushroom product, you'll just see the color of the iodine there. Now it's difficult if the mushroom powder, that real mushroom powder you put in there is dark, then the liquid will be dark to start with. But these myceliated grain products normally are all very light colored for the most part. So that's something you have to be really aware of. The other thing to look for is on a real mushroom product, it would often say on it X amount of beta glucans. So the products that we put out retail, we're always saying on there the amount of beta glucans that we have in the product, and the beta glucans are what you want. These particular products have almost no beta glucans in them. and they're not mushroom. Do you ever eat tempeh?
Rarely, but I have.
You know what tempeh is? You know how it's made?
No.
Tempeh is actually cooked soybeans with fungal mycelium grown on it.
Hmm.
So when you're eating tempeh, you're actually eating mycelium. It's kind of a cool product, but this is what these companies are making. They're making tempeh and then they're drying it, grinding it to a powder, and calling it mushroom.
Yeah, that's really important insight, because I feel like many of the supplements in the supplement industry aren't exactly as advertised. When people, as a consumer, you want it to be as inexpensive as possible, and as a producer, you want it to produce it as cheap as you can, so then you can make a profit. And so it's very important to find the actual supplement or ingredient that you're looking for. And so you just kind of clarified, a lot of people are taking these mushroom supplements and they're not actually mushroom supplements. So they're not going to be experiencing the benefits that they believe that they've been experiencing. So that's kind of a bummer.
Oh,
But it's good to know
man.
now. So then you can now find that track to get the correct supplement and get the result that you're hoping to have.
Well, yeah. And at the end of the show, once we're off, you're going to tell me about the product that you've got, and I'll be able to tell you whether you actually have real mushrooms in there or not.
Okay, well, Dr. Nick's awesome, so I hope so. He's pretty legit, so we'll see. I'll put him to the test.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your 2 cents on the psychedelics, because I know you said you're on the 60s, and I feel like there is a mixed opinion around psychedelics, where they're now becoming more popular. And there's psychedelic assisted therapy. And I know a lot of people have had very transformational experiences on psychedelic mushrooms. I know people have had very horrifying experiences on psychedelic mushrooms. And I'd be curious your 2 cents on that in general. If you recommend them, what doses, where to get the good stuff, what music to listen to, whatever you want.
well, look, the thing about let's just call them magic mushrooms is that, like any of the psychedelic, whether it's ayahuasca or LSD or something like that, you have to be prepared, and you have to understand that it could be a life-changing experience in both ways. It might be real positive, and you're feeling great and all that, or you might have what we used to call a bad trip. But the thing about it is the important things are what are called set and setting. You don't go ahead and take these when you're like in a state where you're going, oh man, things are going so bad for me these days, and I just feel like I'm just not feeling well about it all. Don't trip if that's where you're feeling. And when you do it, the best thing to do is the setting, which is, where are you taking it? Maybe you want to go out into the woods to some place that's just this beautiful place. If you do it during the day and you're out in nature, and nature will come to you, and you will have the experience that you've never had before, where you are absolutely connected to it. And that's one of the most positive experiences, is understanding that we're all connected. And that's I think an insight that everybody should have when they're ready for it, because we're all connected, and getting connected to the natural world. Look, Matt, today people are getting so disconnected. I mean, to the point where companies are out there selling you on, oh, don't you want to come into my metaverse and just put these goggles on and you can do this, that. And I'm just like, Jesus, who the hell wants to do that anyway? It's like, don't we have enough beautiful things in the natural world? So set and setting when you're even thinking about this. And in the setting too, it could be traditionally they will be consuming these things at night. So you're in a comfortable space, it's warm, if you got your certain music that you enjoy, you could have that on. Kick back, close your eyes, just let it take you. Just let it take you. Don't resist. The worst thing you can do is resist, and because it's going to be, if you take a high enough dose, it'll feel very odd and powerful. But let me tell you, if you allow it to come on and do its thing, it is ultimately an ecstatic experience. In other words, it's something like you have never experienced in terms of the feeling you get. Every cell in your body is just lit up totally, and it's just ecstasy. It is just something incredible. So I highly recommend it to people, but under the right circumstances. Do not do it under the wrong circumstances. And look, it's these days, it's been very helpful for people with addiction. They've been able to cure addiction with it. People with mental health issues. So it's being used in those types of settings. But what we're really talking about is people who are reasonably well adjusted, and they're going to take these things and just enjoy the experience and feel that connection and the beauty that it brings. I mean, absolutely amazing. And let me tell you, when we were experimenting a lot with this back in the 60s, I mean, it was an absolute game changer.
You're the guinea pigs for the generations to come.
Yeah, well, you know, and the real difference.
How much of this do you take? I don't know, Doug. What did you do last week? It was too much.
well, and that's very true, because it wasn't like we were, you know, when you're taking a pill, for example, you're like, oh, someone says, oh yeah, try this. It's wonderful. You don't know the actual amount that's in there. You're taking it on the recommendation of somebody you know who says, oh yeah, this is good. And generally speaking, it's all good, but you have to be in the right place to take it. I mean, the last thing you want to do is to take it and then go for a walk downtown Vancouver or something, unless you're really a strong mental, where you can go through and go, oh my God, look at this is insane. But so there is the right time and place to do it. And if you do that correctly, it can be a life-changing experience, and something that's very important. I mean, a lot of people now, they'll do it religiously. There's a number of religions out there where they, you know, once a month they'll come together and have a ceremony and do it in a ceremonial way. And look, I don't, as far as I'm concerned, if people want to take it in a recreational way, that's fine too. Just be prepared and have a lot of, I guess I would say, have respect for what it is and what you're doing, and don't abuse it, because you can have an experience where, man, the key thing is, and where you'll have a bad experience, is if you enter some kind of a space where you're afraid. Man, the whole thing of the only thing to fear is fear itself. I mean,
oh wait, hold on, Jeff.
That's
hold on, Jeff. You literally cut out where you said the key thing here is, and then it just stopped.
I'm sorry.
Oh dear, we need to know. Everybody needs to know.
See, I'm not going to tell you. That's the secret to the universe.
Yeah, it just blipped out. It was too powerful.
Oh, that is funny. Yeah. Well, the only thing to fear is fear itself. So if you become paranoid or you become fearful, man, that's just going right straight to hell. Really, seriously, you'll just all of a sudden, instead of it being this amazing experience, it's just the absolute opposite. And that's where, in a sense, somebody's even written a book about it. His name was Aldous Huxley back in the 50s, and the book was called Heaven and Hell. And essentially that's very true. But if you're going to hell, you're probably better off having somebody there that can help you, right? Because you can get very paranoid. But the thing to always remember is that it's temporary. This will wear off. psilocybin mushrooms, maybe 5-6 hours, you're out of it. It's good. So if you ever have a bad experience, just hang on. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it. You know, a lot of
Hang
people
on
think
for 5 or 6 hours. You'll be oh goodness.
I know. It's look, you get into one of those spaces and it can be difficult, but you just have to, don't ever think you're done. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be this way forever. No. You'll come out of it. And a lot of times you're better off for it. And you'll go, oh man, I really faced some demons there. And now I'm a better person. But that's really better off if you're with an actual practitioner who can help you work through some of those issues. But otherwise, if you have a good state of mind and you have the right place, it can be one of the most beautiful experiences you'll ever have.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that summary and agree with everything you shared. I remember doing mushrooms with a good friend of mine, and we were going outside and we're on his deck. And it's funny how when you're on the mushrooms, like, even going from inside to outside, it's two different universes, or going from one room to another is literally two different universes. And, we go outside and we're there for a minute and I'm just kind of laughing and we're giggling. And it's one of those amazing times. And I was like, you couldn't fit like an ounce, the smallest addition of any more awesome into this. Like, it's impossible for it to be better. It's the absolute maximum amount of euphoria and perfectness that you could be experiencing at this moment, which is phenomenal. And I love that. And I had a friend of mine who went through the negative experience, and this is when he was in university. And what happened to him is like what you just shared, was it ended up being a positive experience. What happened was he was walking home, and he said it all started when I started walking through the graveyard or something, and then he started tripping out. And then he's like, the mushrooms basically told me what a piece of shit I am. And he basically was kind of being, a young man and being a little bit of a, piece of crap in different ways.
Yeah.
And he was failing school. It told him to smarten up, and it actually changed his trajectory from failing school into passing school, becoming married and a father, and didn't fix everything in his life. However, if he had failed and flunked out, he wouldn't have that. He might not have that same job that could provide for his family and provide stability and all those different things.
Yeah.
So, with that said, oh, sorry, do you want to add? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it can be either, but in general, look, back then the bad trip was always very rare. Most people had a positive experience, and again, it depends too on the amount you take. So, and today the beautiful thing is you don't have to take a pill. You can actually buy mushrooms. There's mushrooms out there there's tons of them being grown every year, and today it's, back then you have to remember it was prohibition. I mean, even cannabis was prohibited. People went to jail. I have friends that spent a few years in jail over cannabis or mushrooms. Today, and certainly in Canada, nobody goes to jail for that. So really, that was the other side of it, is we always had to be looking over our shoulder in a way, because you could be arrested and put in jail. So it was quite a different time than today. Today, it's just like you're so free to do this without that stigma, and it's wonderful. It's just like the fact I never thought I would see cannabis legalized in anywhere, and in Canada it's legal now. I'm like, holy shit! And I don't even smoke anymore. So it's like
a little while too late.
Yeah, I know.
Now reason to
It's
start
crazy.
smoking again.
Yeah. So it's just weird, It's just a strange thing, but I'm so happy for it. I really am, and I'm happy for the sense that mushrooms are now at a point where they're accepted in a number of different ways, and people can use them and not have this stigma attached, or not be worried about the long arm of the law grabbing them or anything like that. No, it's not that way anymore. So that's wonderful. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, and one point I wanted to bring up was the idea that when you take mushrooms, what I believe may happen is it breaks your mental model of the world. We have all this neural map of all our memories and everything that's ever happened. And whatever the experience brings, it has the power to disrupt that. Like everything you think you know, you go into a direct experience that challenges everything and says, hey, you don't really know very much. Because you're in this direct experience that transcends all of this world. Essentially, it's just very, very, very powerful. So when you come back to this mental model of the world, what you believe a car is, and how the world works and how it's all separated, like you said, it's this oneness experience is very integrated. And so now this mental model of the world, it needs to be updated, and it doesn't go back quite the same way. It can't go back quite the same way. And one criticism is that a lot of people may see that and they don't know how to integrate the information. It seems like, I'm a business guy and I make lots of money, and I don't really give a shit about people, right? And it might be varying degrees of that. You might not even be conscious of like how you work. You don't really care so much about people as long as you meet your bottom line. You have this mushroom experience, and it might give you the trip that says, hey, like, you're all connected. You could do the same thing in your business and care more about the effect of everyone else that's happening. So how do you integrate that? Or maybe it's the relationships. Okay, your business is okay, but you are terrible in your relationships. You treat your wife poorly. You don't have a great relationship with your son or daughter. These are areas, and they might hurt and they might not feel good. And that's where the integration or the therapy or the friendship or the mentorship is very helpful, because when you're in that state, the solution and the issue can become crystal clear, and you just know it. And this is the thing. Tomorrow I go and I do boom, boom, boom. It's all done. Then once it wears off, you're back to being human. And then you get distracted, and then you get hungry, and then you do all these different things. And then how do you go do these things that will create the solution that you're looking for? And so mushrooms can be incredibly powerful, and other psychedelics as well, to show you issues in your life and new opportunities to create solutions. And then the real challenge then is to go ahead and take action on it. And it's also good though, because when you're in that state, it's so enlightened, it's so powerful, it's so energetic that that possibility is there. It's the possibility of healing a relationship, the possibility of, moving into a career that's more fulfilling, the possibility of letting go of that trauma, and changing the trajectory of your life. It disturbs that set in stone scenario that many people have, that shakeup that people need. And that's why I do feel like psychedelics can be very powerful, used in a respectful way to jar people's reality, perception of reality. And it's usually the people that are very rigid. If you're already open-minded and, let's say, spiritually aligned with asking good questions, being open to feedback, being open, you're not closed-minded, you're seeking the truth, you're having your point of view questioned, and then you're seeking the truth. So if they give you something better, then you hear it. And if it's total nonsense, you hear that too, because you're open to it, and you're giving a response that has more information, it has more validity, it has more understanding, while you're still opening. And if they, or while you're still questioning. So that's a bit of a rant. You want to add on
no,
that?
no, look, no, I totally agree. That was really well stated, Matt. And the fact is that, look, the programming that we go through from the very beginning of our life is very, very deep and ingrained in who we are and how we act. Breaking through that programming, becoming open to this whole new, let's just call it a whole new universe or a whole new dimension, which we haven't been allowed to experience or see. We've never been taught about that. Look, when we were doing this in the 60s, there were no guides. There were no road maps or anything like that. Today, people have a lot more opportunity to listen to what other people have to say, to even go and have a guided experience. So, and the other part of that is being open to new information. As we get older, these grooves that we've been in just tend to solidify, and pretty soon we've got walls up and we're just running in one lane. we have to stay open. And these can help us open up and accept and realize our full potential, because our full potential is not even being tapped to any real degree at all. And this is one of the methods that is very, very useful to understand that, because until you actually experience it, and what you said is so true. This experience, it is the most real thing you will ever be involved in. It is totally real, and you know that when you're there with every part of your body, because you're not, your mind's not going this, that, or the other. You're just there. You are in the moment when you're high on mushrooms or whatever it is. And the key thing is not to have that little voice that's always in our head, that's always going and talking to us about this and that. And no, you just want to be experiencing this 100% and just being absolutely in the moment.
Yeah, and you shared something I think is important. It opens up to new potential, almost infinite potential, where you are rigid in this track, and then all of a sudden you see 100 new opportunities that you've never seen before, and you're experiencing them directly in a feeling and a knowing, in a very powerful way. And you could say, I'm curious if you know any of the science around this, but it's very fascinating, because you can say, oh, you're tripping out, right? And you say, oh, well, that's just the drug. But the thing is, when you're in the experience, why does it feel like this? Why is there like a deeper knowing? What is the experience still has value regardless of what's going on in the mental world. But I bet you there's some things going on in the brain and the body that create this feeling. But people who do it, and they do it with respect, and they do it with reverence, and they do it with a desire to grow in some sort of manner, not to go to a party and then trip out. And it's like, I'm going to use this thing as a powerful tool and respect it, and these maybe are some of the solutions that I'm looking for. So you combine prayer and intention and some of these other spiritual practices with the mushrooms, then you can get very powerful results. And I do know of one study they did in a university. People can look this up somewhere, with hopefully the information I'll provide for them. But they had everyone do LSD, and they had to be, I think it was 4th year students, and they had to be working on a problem for a year. And I think it was like 70 or 80% of the students ended up coming up with a solution to the issue. I can see your light went out, but we can still see you, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I don't know why the light just changed all of a sudden, but it is a experience that I think everybody should have at some point. There was a beautiful book. Let me just recommend this to your listeners. It's called Island. The author of the book is Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley. If you don't know Aldous Huxley, get familiar with him. He wrote a book called Island. He also wrote that book, Heaven and Hell, which is about his experience with mescaline. But Island, one of the things they did in Island was, when the young people in this society turned 18, they had this mushroom experience together. So they were introduced into this. It was like a rite of passage. It was an initiation. Can you imagine if we had that in our own culture, and how important it would be? You just froze.
Oh, you broke up for a second. Yeah. Can you imagine we had that mushroom initiation in our own culture?
Well, yeah. I mean, that would be so amazing. And hopefully we are working towards that, because that's what we lack. That's that spiritual dimension that is not there. Everybody's too hung up on making money. And look, we all have to make a living, but consuming and getting that car and all the rest, that's not the real world. That's not where we want to be. That's a distraction. We really want to be in tune. And if we're in tune, especially if we're in tune with the natural world, we wouldn't be destroying it the way we are, we wouldn't be consuming it the way we are. Other things would be much more important, and keeping it intact. It's just like where I live in Tofino. I live on a property that's still an old growth forest. I have massive trees on my property, but BC now has less than 10% of the original old growth forests. Do we really want to cut them down? Do we really want to turn them into a timber for houses or something? I mean, it's just, these are something that we should be respectful of and wanting to care for, so that generations can walk through those forests, because it's just magnificent. And that's having some respect for the natural world and being a part of it, rather than just looking at it as, oh, gee, that forest looks great. I wonder how much money is there for me to, if I cut it down.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is certainly a spiritual element that comes with the psychedelic mushroom experience that is very powerful and is very profound. It helps you to realign your priorities to a more spiritual lens of understanding your impact of what you do with everything else, when our culture of materialism really directs us towards the bottom line of materialism, of getting as much as we can regardless of the outcome. And it's interesting you brought up Aldous Huxley a few times, because he wrote A Brave New World, which just kind of goes into as well of it's not the people, it's the systems, and then participating in those systems. So you do have people that really are looking for bottom line profit. A friend of mine who loves marijuana, he told me about hemp and the power of hemp, and I've been learning about that for a long time. And these characters do exist apparently, and I'd have to check this out. So if you're listening, check it out for yourself. But he told me, I guess I just trust him because he really loves weed. But he also, I don't know accurate this is, but he told me, back in the day that Rockefellers had the wood industry locked down, and they were creating paper. When hemp came in, you could create paper for cheaper and really grow a lot of hemp. And he was the one who started the propaganda campaign around hemp and everything around it, so that it wouldn't mess up his business. And so that bottom line of saying, hey, you know what? We live in a world of abundance, right? We can learn how to interact with this world in a way of abundance. But when this power begins to get amalgamated, now we have an issue, because it's not the everyday person that is like causing the big issues. I think it's the ignorance of the systems, and then sometimes participating in it. Maybe it's your job. You say, oh, you know what? I'm doing this, but I got to make a living. I'm doing this thing that goes against my soul because I got to make a living. You could figure out a way to do work that also benefits other people. And mushrooms, if you were on that side where you were more in the materialism, selfish, egoic, would probably present you the idea of participating in the world in a new way. It might do it in a kind way, and it might do it in an unkind way. Basically, be like, my buddy, hey, you're being kind of a piece of crap. Do you realize what you're doing is affecting all of these people negatively? Right. And you're rationalizing it in your mind. You have this block. In hypnosis, they call it the critical factor. You can't see past this critical factor because it won't let you, because your ego is protecting itself, because this is how you understand the world. And if you visit this idea, if you visit this perspective, it is going to explode your whole map of how you exist in this reality, which is very tough for people to swallow.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really work in words.
Most people do not want to go there.
Yeah.
Especially, most people are in a comfort zone, right? And so that's where they'd like to stay. And look, it's really interesting that you knew of Brave New World, because maybe a lot of people, that's only where they know Aldous Huxley. Brave New World was his dystopian world, kind of like 1984. If anybody hasn't read that, read both of those books. But for Aldous Huxley, Island was his world. That was what he thought, this is what the world should be like. So it's really an important book, and I highly recommend it to people. It's just a wonderful vision of what it could be like.
It's like the experience of A Brave New World is the bad trip, and I have never read The Island, but and that's the one that became popularized, right, in 1984. It's the bad scenario, the fear, right?
Yep.
And we didn't want to
Yep.
go there. And then
Yep.
but then also with the psychedelic experience or the spiritual experience or the deep reflective experience on what is possible here. And when I was young, I never understood our world. It never made any sense. How can we be doing all these complex, advanced things and we don't have peace? How can we have all of this abundance and then people are starving? And then you have all this agenda to say we don't live in a world of abundance. But if you look at nature, we do. And then the systems are designed to really shift that, and then it gets skewed into really persuading the public and not critically thinking. So they now can't find the truth, and they think they're being virtuous and kind and good, but they don't get the full story. Just like you did in the simple example of, I'm going to go get a mushroom supplement. These are mushrooms. Well, if you are an expert, which you're not, because you're just an average Joe, you're not actually getting any of the benefits you think you're getting. You're getting a bunch of crap. So the result you wanted to heal your gut or whatever isn't going to work. And then you're going to go tell people it doesn't work, because you never got the opportunity because you didn't get the full understanding. And so that's
right.
kind of the world we're into here.
Yeah, well, and look, I think what you're just saying was very important, because a lot of people get locked into, let's just call mainstream media. And that's what I love about people like you that are podcasting and bringing information to people that they're not going to get if they're just out there reading a newspaper or something like that, right? Today, we have this opportunity to listen to other voices like yours, and that is really a game changer. You know, it's kind of like Joe Rogan, right? And listening to Rogan and the people he has on, and then listening to people from the other side going, "Oh, Joe Rogan, he's this, he's that," and you're just like, man, are you the people that are just listening to the 6 o'clock news and reading the newspaper? Is that who you are? I mean, I look at that and I just think, man, that's so last century. Get stop it. Stop listening to that stuff, because it's destructive is what it is. There's so much else in this world. And that's what, again, I love about what you're doing and what other people who are podcasting are doing. It is absolutely so important, and helping people open their minds to new possibility and just being open to the world.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. And that was the intention when I started this. It's because I couldn't find enough quality content. I couldn't find enough meaningful conversations. There was not enough people in my life that wanted to talk about these ideas, that wanted to explore these ideas. And many people who listen to this show, many people who reach out to me for coaching and want some support, they don't have a community. There's one or two people that they can speak to about this. And that's the biggest thing, because they can see the world in a different way. And most of the people, they're unable to. They're unable to see the world in a new way. And so for each and every person who is able to take that accountability to reflect on who they are, to figure out what's most important to them, and to create and design a life of meaning and have this constant reflection and dialogue and search for growth, they're going to be the examples for everybody in their field. And just to understand, it's not the common path. It's not most people doing this, because it's not an easy path. You know, the self-growth, spiritual growth is not fun and roses, really. It's more rewarding, it's more fulfilling, it's more authentic, it's more beautiful at the end of the day. And it comes with a lot of challenges too. If you want the easy job, right, you get the easiest job you can with the most amount of money that has the least amount of risk, and it's not very exciting. Also, you're not really testing yourself and what you're made of. You're not really engaging with that spiritual side, that infinite side of which we are all a part of. And a meditative experience can show you that. A psychedelic experience can show you that. And, you know, if you use the psychedelic as a tool to experience it, you don't use it every single day to stay there. It is a remembrance. If you couldn't find it, it is a spark. It is a source to say, you know what, now stop eating like crap, start hitting the gym, and start adding some healthy habits, and start creating a spiritual practice. Oh, sweet. Thank you for that. That's great. Now that's going to be the challenge, right? You know, to where, you know, the mushroom, like, hey, you're really overweight. Everything is, your diet is terrible. It shows you everything perfectly, but then you come out of it and it was so clear. And you're like, oh man, I feel lethargic because my body's not in shape. I'm overweight. I eat like crap. But now you saw the path, and then you could work towards it and become and shape a new reality for yourself.
Yeah, and that's where you were talking about earlier too, about the fact of community, and you're coming out of it, and you need to ultimately build a supportive community that can help you stay there rather than slowly going back to your old life and sort of
Yep.
forgetting about this. And that's too where if you get work it into your regimen, where okay, maybe you do this once a month, or maybe every 3 months, or a couple times a year, but always to be able to go back and enter that realm, just so you don't forget it, just so you're reminded, because you have to build that groove into who you are to keep you on that path. Otherwise, it's so easy to slide back, because let's face it, the world today, most people are on and in that world and that experience, and that's unfortunately not where we want to be. We really need change. And so if you want to change, having others that are with you on that is super important. And that's the community that you live in, and or the greater community that maybe you're in touch with.
Absolutely. It makes it so much better to have people around you. And when I run coaching groups and things like that, a lot of the time, the biggest benefit is that people are like, there's no one I can talk to this about, right? Just knowing that there's other people out there that are like this, and they realize when they hear people's stories that they're dealing with the same thing. And so that's just incredibly helpful. And you don't have to do it on your own. You never have to do it on your own. And whatever you choose to do for support, just that's an important element, right? Like that's why all the best athletes in the world have coaches. They're pro athletes, and somehow they get more coaches, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to check their boundaries. They want to keep learning. They want to have feedback for what they're doing. And it's an important part of the process. This has been amazing. I chat to you all day. This has been very fun. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked, or that you want to talk about before we close the show?
No, not really. All I would like to say to people is, look, put mushrooms into your diet, make mushrooms part of your health regime. Put them into your diet first, maybe supplement if you need to. And if you get a chance, definitely look at psychoactive, or let's just call them magic mushrooms. There's a tremendous potential. If you're ready, give them a try.
Well, I guess I'll ask one final question on that. If someone is going to endeavor in that, what would you recommend for like a light dose, a medium dose, or a heavy dose?
Well, look, what's a heavy dose is considered 5 dried grams. And I would say if you want to really get into that realm, you'd want to be a minimum of 2 grams. A lot of people out there, a lot of talk about microdosing. Microdosing, I don't know. The jury's out. A lot of people do it just because they think, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and they want to be part of the, jump on the train of everybody else or something. So, but minimum 2 grams, probably 5 grams, 2 to 5 grams, depending on, whether you're a small person or a larger person, the amount you'd need. But that's what you do, and be sure you do it in the right setting, and a mind that's open to it, and you're ready, and there's nothing on your mind at the time that's kind of, you're involved with and focusing on.
Is the heroic dose, is that 10? Is that what Terrence McKenna
Oh,
said?
I think
Like
I think the heroic
think,
dose has always been considered to be 5 grams.
is it?
And
Okay. So
yeah,
imagine you shoot for 10. That's because there's the mushroom realm. There's there's if you take them, there's a point where you're like, okay, like you're in it, like you're in now. So
yeah, well, I think
there's no going back.
the whole idea of heroic dose was brought to us by Terrence McKenna. You might be
Yep.
familiar with Terrence and his writings, and he considered 5 grams to be a heroic dose. And I think most people who've taken that amount would agree that that's a pretty significant amount.
Yeah, and he's a very fascinating person for people to check out, and his perspective on all these things. He was very
Oh man.
spiritually minded, also quite the psychonaut, very explorative. And yeah, for people who listen to my show, my opinion on the psychedelics is just use responsibly. Like, is that any worse than drinking? Is it any worse than, we all have habits and things that we're trying to either let go of or we're trying to improve, right? And so just having deep reverence, because these things aren't to be messed with, and if you go at them as a tool, then it can improve your life. And I've seen it improve a lot of people's lives, and I've seen it do nothing, and I've seen it make people's lives worse because of who they were in their character and their inability to listen to the signs from themselves, from other people, and the results they were getting. It's always within the self.
Right. Yeah. Again, that's what I would tell people to do in terms of mushrooms, and I wish them the best in that. And there's plenty of community out there, and much more information and help than there ever was. So yeah, there's really a lot of opportunity for people to try it all out.
Yeah, we've gone a long way from you with your bag of mushrooms running from the fuzz.
We have.
And now you can grow them.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, this is the screenshot of these mushrooms, and then the magic mushrooms are on the other slide, and I'll see you in 10 days.
That's
Business is
right.
unautomated. Well, this has been a treat. I appreciate you. If people want to stay in touch with you, I would have loved to get into growing mushrooms, because I feel like farming and growing food is very important. I'd love for people to reference your book. Your book is everything you need to know about growing mushrooms. And if they want to follow your work, where do they go?
Well, my company's Nammex, NAMMEX.com. We got a lot of information there about functional mushrooms, what they do and what to look for. A lot of great slideshows too on how we grow our mushrooms. And the retail side of it is called Real Mushrooms, realmushrooms.com. So if you actually want to try the products, you can go to realmushrooms.com. And the book is still available out there. It's gotten more expensive over the years, which is interesting, but it's called The Mushroom Cultivator. You can find it on Amazon or other places that sell it. And it gives you all you need to know about growing mushrooms.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. And thanks everybody for watching.
Hey, it's been my pleasure, Matt. Thanks so much.
Awesome. All right, guys. See you later. Peace.